South Korea has unveiled the main meeting room for Friday's historic Inter-Korean Summit. It will be the first direct talks between the leaders of North and South Korea in more than a decade. Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in will discuss Pyongyang's nuclear program and also a formal end to hostilities. The room they will use is in the House of Peace on the South Korean side of the truce village of Panmunjom. Koreans from both sides of the border told us what they expect to see from the summit.
My wish for the summit is that our people can travel back and forth and live together.
He completed nuclear weapons and his missiles can reach Guam. What's left? As a leader, he must inspire loyalty in 23 million people. Will they give him loyalty? No, because they are on the verge of starvation following the sanctions. Kim Jong-un knows this, so he came to the table with denuclearization card.
For more than 2 years, the relations had been frozen, and we couldn't access the Kaesong Industrial Complex. But finally, on the 27th, the summit is scheduled. That would mean that after the summit, the economic issue will be discussed, and the Kaesong Industrial Complex will be the top priority. I'm full of such anticipation.
We have correspondents on both sides. So from Pyongyang, our diplomatic editor, James Bays, takes a look at the military's role in North Korea. First, though, Kathy Novak reports from a village inside the demilitarized zone.
This is a farming village unlike any other in South Korea. It's inside the heavily guarded demilitarized zone that separates the two Koreas. North Korea is just over a kilometer in that direction. Villagers who strayed over the border in the past were arrested by North Korean guards, so farmers get a military escort to their rice fields.
We have to report every time we enter and exit the village. We're farmers, so we have to go out to sell our crops, but so many restrictions apply to us, which makes it very difficult.
When the 1953 armistice ended hostilities in the Korean War, the two Koreas set up a village each inside the DMZ as a sort of model of what life is like on either side. The South Koreans call Kijong on the other side a propaganda village. They don't believe people really live there. When South Korea erected a 100-meter flagpole, the North put up a 160-meter flagpole. Villagers are close enough to hear propaganda broadcasts from the North, but they say they haven't heard any since Monday, after South Korea announced it would stop broadcasting its messages across the border. For about 200 residents, evacuation drills and a curfew from midnight to sunrise are a way of life. But in exchange, because this land is under UN command, locals don't pay taxes to the South Korean government. With about 17 acres of farming land per family, the average incomes are higher than those of other farmers. And men are exempt from mandatory military service. The 35 students at the only school inside the DMZ get personalized attention with only about 5 children per teacher, and U.S. soldiers visit to teach English. If you're not a direct descendant of an original resident and want to move here, you have to be a woman and marry a local man. Men don't have that option because the South Korean government doesn't want them taking unfair advantage of the military service exemption.
They are everywhere, but you're not allowed to film them. We only got these pictures when we first arrived in Pyongyang, before it was explained politely but very firmly that taking pictures of military and security personnel was forbidden. The North Korean military is believed to have over 1 million soldiers. This city was badly destroyed during the Korean War. Most of the buildings were built in the decades immediately after the conflict. The military history of this now isolated nation is revealed as you travel around the capital city. This monument marks the defeat of the Japanese who'd occupied Korea until the end of World War II. A few years later, the Korean War, which had a devastating human cost on both sides. This is a country that was forged in war and is still, even now, on a war footing. Younger Koreans at this school are taught the history of the Korean War. War images are displayed in the corridors. Older Koreans, meanwhile, need no reminders.
Those Americans, just hearing about them makes my heart tremble. My father was killed by the Americans when I was 12. So whenever I hear about those Americans, I get overcome with hatred. It makes my heart tremble.
Forthcoming talks will centre on North Korea's nuclear programme, but the country has a substantial conventional arsenal too. The principal target of their artillery guns, the South Korean capital, Seoul. Earlier there, in the other half of this divided land, I spoke to a lawmaker and military expert who told me the world should not only focus on the nuclear threat.
The biological weapons are honestly more fearsome than nuclear weapons from our perspective. The destructiveness of a 1-ton nuclear warhead can be achieved with only 4 kilograms of anthrax in terms of casualties in Seoul. It is estimated that North Korea has stockpiled over 5,000 tons of chemical weapons.
Songgun, or military first, is a long-standing North Korean strategy. In recent years, the leader, Kim Jong-un, has added another track, a cautious and partial opening up of the economy. Now, for the first time on Friday, he'll be adding in high-level diplomacy. James Bays, Al Jazeera, Pyongyang.